Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're out here with little Vodka today. The other two dogs are in the house currently. They're over in the window. Probably going to pop up in this window. They don't really want to come out right now. That's okay. But we're here outside today because I wanted to talk about some tips for buying your plants. Okay, for buying your plants from the nursery. So you might buy annuals, perennials, shrubs, trees. Who knows what you're buying? But the same basic criteria apply. And yes, we have some more peppers turning red. Isn't that happy? So the same basic criteria apply whether you are buying annuals, perennials, shrubs, or trees. So what you want, first of all, look for foliage that is a consistent color with no discolored or missing foliage, no limp or wilted bits, and no dried up bits. You don't want a bunch of dried up bits. This is going to be fun. You also want to look at the shape of the plant you're buying. Okay, you want to look at that shape and make sure it's well balanced, that it's a busy, lush plant. You don't want to plant, there's my peas back there. You don't want a plant that is not lush and bushy and uniform. You want it to be pretty symmetrical. You want to avoid the long sprawling shoots. And you want to make sure that there are no stunted shoots. Okay, so you want to make sure all of that is good. You want to avoid bent, broken stems or branches. So you don't want to have to rescue a plant that you're paying for, basically. So it's one thing to rescue plants that you started from seed and kind of got a little suspicious. But it's another thing to have to rescue a plant that you paid good money for. So you don't want to have to rescue that plant. Some of the other things you should watch for, make sure the container size is in proportion to the plant itself. So you don't want a plant that's in a teeny tiny container if it's a big plant. Okay, you want a decent sized plant in a decent sized container. If the container's too big, that's not a bad thing. If the container's too small, that is a bad thing. Because big plants in small pots often get pot bound, and sometimes a pot bound plant will simply not survive transplant. Okay, so you might want to skip that particular plant. Walking on acorns, yay me. Little pumpkin, doing well. When you're buying your plants, it's okay if there are some roots coming out of that drainage hole. That's fine, no big deal. But you want to make sure there aren't too many shoots coming out of the bottom of that planter, out of the container, because too many shoots means that, you know, it's probably been a while and that plant probably needs to be repotted and it's probably not super healthy, and that's fine, but you don't want to pay good money for a plant that may not survive. You also want to make sure there's no roots coiling around the surface of the plant, because that means there's just not enough room in the container. That plant is going to be a little bit of a rescue plant, and that's no good. It's not helpful. It's not useful. It's probably too much work. So unless you're getting it for free, you probably don't want to take on that particular plant. You want to make sure the soil in the pot is within an inch of that rim. Just because you want to make sure that plant has been getting enough soil. And you also want to make sure that the soil is not so dry that it pulls away from the sides of the pot. Because again, that means it was underwatered, probably going to be a lot of rescue work involved. It's not really a big deal sometimes to rescue plants, but don't pay for a plant that you have to rescue. Vodka's over by the car. Okay? Don't pay for a plant that you have to rescue, because that's ridiculous. You want to avoid plants showing signs of insect or disease damage. So things like misshapen flowers, contorted stems or branches. You just want to make sure that everything is nice and straight, that it's not infested with bugs. And finally, you want to look for that identification label. It should be somewhere either on the plant or stuck into the pot, into the soil of the pot. You do want to make sure there's an identification label. Yes, sometimes your plants are mislabeled. That's normal. It happens. It shouldn't, but it does. But if there's no identification label at all, you're taking a risk. You really have no idea what it might be. And it also means that that nursery is not really taking a lot of care with their plants because they don't know what it is. Cat. So, yes, you absolutely should make sure there's labels. So, do labels get switched? Yeah, people suck. Okay, let's be honest. People actually suck. And they move labels around all the time. It's not fun. But it is not a good idea to buy from a nursery that doesn't use labels at all, or buy a bunch of plants where the labels are completely missing. First of all, you might be paying more than you should. Second of all, you really want to make sure you're getting what you're paying for. So make sure the labels are there and that they're at least mostly accurate. Anyway, that is all I wanted to talk about today because I am working on making shorter videos. There's Tequila. I'm working on making some shorter videos. So that is it for today. We will pick up again next week with a different topic. So until then, we'll see you tomorrow.